We are now.
All right, we'll call it to order then. And we'll start with the introductions. We'll start with the voting members. I'm Matt Brower, Chair of the State Committee. Darren? Is Darren on?
He is. Maybe muted. Yeah, looks like you're muted, Darren.
Scott is.
Scott was not able to come today.
Okay. Then we have Megan.
Good morning, Megan Hauser, voting member out in Wyoming County.
All right, good morning, Megan. Maureen?
Good morning, Maureen Leupold, Monroe County voting member.
Good morning, Maureen. All righty. Darren, are you? Okay. Well, we'll go forward then. Do you want to do around the room here, Bethany, first?
Sure.
Okay. Brian?
Hello, Brian Steinmiller, Assistant Director, Division of Land and Water Resources, Ag and Markets.
Ben Luskin, Region 5 AEA.
Jennifer Clifford, CRF Program Manager. Melissa Gordon, Administrative Assistant.
Jason Coquinos, Agnon Point Source Manager.
Tim Sheldon, Climate Policy and Program Analyst.
Darren is on now, I believe. I wonder if he can hear us.
I think he's frozen, maybe.
Oh, there he is.
Well, I guess we'll go back to you, Bethany, with the group you have.
Okay. Thanks, Matt. We'll go around the room here and then I'll do roll call of folks on the line. So I'm Bethany Bisdu, Executive Director of the New York State Soil and Water Conservation Committee.
Good morning, Ryan Cunningham, Field Staff for the State Committee, Region 4. Morning, everyone. Scott Fickbaum, Region 3 AEA. Ian Welch, Executive Director for Cornell Cooperative Extension in Cuba County and advisory member on behalf of CCE.
I'm PJ Umrick. I'm the Region 2 Associate Environmental Analyst for the State Committee.
All right. Bear with me 2 seconds. All right, so a quick roll call of other advisory members on who may be on the line joining us. Do we have anyone from Cornell CALS?
Yep, Jared's here.
And Katie O'Neill.
Good morning. And CDEA.
Good morning, Caitlin Stewart, President.
Good morning, Caitlin. DEC.
Good morning, Molly Hassett.
And Sean Alexander.
Good morning. How about Department of Health?
Good morning, everyone. Morgan Tarbell.
Good morning, Ryan Bell.
Morning. Department of State. Okay. How about SUNY ESF? Okay, and I don't expect anyone to be on, but NRCS? All right. And so we'll move on to a quick roll call of our state committee staff who might be joining on the line. Greg Albrecht.
Morning, everybody. Bethany. Greg Albrecht, Principal Environmental Analyst with the State Committee in Ag and Markets.
Travis Ferry.
Good morning, Region 6 AEA with State Committee.
Good morning. Chastity Miller.
Good Good morning, Chastity Miller, the AEM base coordinator.
Good morning. Lauren Przorski? Ron Bush? Brendan Jordan?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Brendan Jordan, CNMP Specialist with the State Committee.
Good morning. Gideon Frisbee?
Good morning, Gideon Frisbee, CNMP Specialist with the State Committee.
Tim Clark? And Tyler Knapp. Okay, that wraps up our roll call of staff. I just want to extend a warm welcome to any conservation district staff or board member that is attending our meeting today, as well as anyone from the general public who has participated in this meeting. Please feel free to enter your name and affiliation in the chat for our records. Thank you, Matt.
All right, we will go to the review and approval of minutes. Is there any discussion or questions concerning the minutes? If not, motion to approve.
Hang on, Matt, there maybe was a question here in Sarah.
Well, it's a correction.
Okay.
In voting members, it's 2 E's in
Oh.
my name.
Okay.
That's the only thing that I found.
Oh, then I can hear it. Oh, okay.
I so move to approve the amended minutes.
Okay.
I'll second that. Maureen?
Okay, very good. We'll go to voting. Megan,
Aye.
Maureen,
Aye.
and Darren,
Aye.
and I for me as well. So motion approves. Next is the correspondence. Bethany?
Yes, thank you, Matt. So I wanted to share with folks today I guess just an overview of a letter that was received from the Putnam County Board Chair and Vice Chair. The letter was sent to Michael Latham, who's the Director of the Division of Land and Water Resources at the Department of Ag and Markets, as well as Matt Brower, who is the Chair of our New York State Soil and Water Conservation Committee. The letter from the board was requesting that the state committee provide guidance on the statutory authority of soil and water conservation districts. And they also requested our participation in a physical services committee meeting, which was to take place on September 25th. The letter was received on September 19th. Due to the short turnaround, state committee staff were not able to participate in that September 25th meeting. However, I did want to share that we were able to provide some written guidance to the district to help them explain their statutory authorities to their county legislature and explain how districts are set up in general across the state. We are also continuing to work with the Putnam County Board to help them continue the conversation with their legislature. An attorney from the Department of Ag and Markets has recently met with the Putnam County attorney who represents the Soil and Water District, as well as the county board, to kind of discuss the district law and the elements that are written into the law regarding the district's authority. So we are continuing to work on this issue, and that meeting between the attorneys happened last week, I believe, on Friday. So we still need to follow up with Putnam County Soil and Water, and we'll be continuing to help them in any way we can. just to continue their conversation that they are having with their county board, to kind of establish themselves as more of a separate entity within the county. I guess any questions on that?
Just a quick question. I was curious. I know one time there was an attorney that was assigned to handle the state committee issues and the conservation district law issues. Is there now, or they just kind of deal with that as it comes up?
I think we primarily do work with one particular attorney when it comes to interpreting soil and water conservation district law.
Okay.
For our contracts, we work with a different attorney down in council's office, but yeah, we do generally work with one attorney.
Okay. All right. Just was curious as to whether they were just kind of dealing with whoever was available when the question came up, or whether they had somebody more or less assigned. All right.
Yeah.
Bethany, was this it sounded in the letter like this is a long-standing issue. Is this the first time that it's been brought up to the state level?
Correct. Yes. It is the first time. And I think, well, others, I think Ben has been more closely involved in the discussions down there as their regional staff representative. But I think there's been some turnover in the district board, and they're looking to establish themselves more as a district. They've recently become involved in the agricultural environmental management program, which is additional funding that could come to the district. So I think there's been some recent changes that they hadn't had before, and that's what's kind of prompting this discussion.
Okay, and it's not been a problem in any other district. This is just a unique, nothing's been brought up any other district in the past.
To my knowledge, no. I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you.
All right. I guess we're to Brian with the staff update.
Oh, thank you. Yep, and then I'll certainly turn it over to Bethany as well to talk a little bit more about the new regions and just overall information that was recently sent out to districts. But happy to report that the department continues to support the mission of the Soil and Water Committee by way of implementing our staff plan. And we are up to 32 employees total within the Division of Land and Water Resources. So we have been growing quite a bit over the past few years. Specific to the state committee, I'm happy to again announce and congratulate Travis Ferry to his recent post here with the state committee as a new Region 6 coordinator. And I'll let Bethany talk a little bit more about that in the districts that he's going to be serving as coordinator. Also, just wanted to mention again that Gideon Frisbee joined our team as an AIM CNP specialist over the summer months, and he'll be supporting technical assistance training and certification through the AIM framework, and working with a team on the certification program. I also wanted to again welcome and announce that Tim Sheldon, who had served as the Department Excelsior Fellow, Policy Fellow over the last 2 years. That fellowship was completed in September successfully by Tim. Throughout that fellowship, he was working a lot with our division and the state committee, and we were able to hire him as well as a program manager and staff person to support conservation programs and policy development, specifically with a focus on climate change and renewable energy. Tim will also be the CAFO Enhanced Nutrient Methane Management Program manager. And again, information was sent out to districts on that. So he'll be taking over that program. And We continue to work with the department to seek additional resources for the state committee, staff resources and the like. And we have a couple of backfills we'll be working on and some additional positions we'll be working on throughout the course of the year that I will continue to report to the committee about. Bethany, am I missing anything? I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit more about the information you sent out to districts.
No, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so yeah, to continue on with Brian's staff update, I wanted to feature the map that you're seeing on the screen right now. So with our addition of Travis to the staff, we were able to expand our regional coordinator staff by one, which meant we had to reorganize the regions that our current staff members were overseeing. So what you see on the screen now is our current regional or state committee region map. Region 1 is currently represented by Victor DiGiacomo. Region 2, as you see on the screen, is covered by PJ Emmerich. Region 3 by Scott Fickbaum. Region 4, Ryan Cunningham. Region 5, Ben Luskin, and Region 6, Travis Ferry. So some districts have had to change their regions, which means they'll be working with a new regional coordinator. Hopefully not a stranger, but someone who hasn't regularly been to their meetings, and we're starting to build those relationships. So as part of this transition to the new boundaries, we put together a memo, as Brian described, not only announcing all of our new staff members, but we laid out some of the transition process, if you will, for districts who will be working with a new regional coordinator. So way before we actually were able to bring Travis on, our regional staff began working with their districts and their new ones to start that transition process early. So kudos to all of you for working really hard and in advance of our actual transition to make it go as smooth as possible. Staff have been sharing program files, various pieces of information, and they've been very active in attending district board meetings within their new regions to become, acquainted with new district staff and board members in those counties. So they started this, a couple months ago, and I expect that this kind of transition process is going to, continue through the end of the year. Just, we don't want to, we want to make it as smooth as possible. So we also, in the memo, instructed districts to, as of, I think, the beginning of last week, to start directing all of their communications, board agendas, meeting minutes, grant information to their new regional coordinator. And, we fully understand that this is a transition process. So, if something doesn't make it to the correct regional coordinator, we'll make sure it gets there, or they'll make sure it gets there. Grant closeouts, if a district was in the middle of closing out a grant with their current coordinator, that individual is going to continue and see that through. Anything new will go to your new regional coordinator. Districts are also in the process of developing their annual plans of work for 2026. So the same process goes for that. If you've already submitted it, or if you submitted it prior to October 13th, your current regional coordinator is going to review that. Anything following should go to your new regional coordinator. Part of this process is also, I think Brian has reported out on this before, but the next position we want to work on and work with the department to get approval for is a state aid to district program manager, who will also serve as a district operations specialist and maybe have some outreach responsibilities as well. We are actively working to seek approval from the department for that position. Until that position is filled, I will serve as an interim program manager, coordinator, if you will, for the state aid to district program. I'm working really closely with Ben Luskin, who has overseen that program for the past several years, as well as the other regional coordinators to administer and manage that program. So similar to the other guidance, districts should now start sending anything regarding the state aid to districts program to me, and we are going to be coordinating it together as a team. We also provided an updated staff contact information out to districts with all the new staff members and kind of changing titles and roles. We wanted districts to have the most current information, so that went out to them as well. A great thing, and I'm hoping with the communication and the memo, we were able to make the transition for some districts as smooth as possible. So far, so good, I think.
Bethany, how many counties actually had a transition to make?
Well, that's a good question. I don't have an exact number, but I know with the region that Victor oversees, 2 of his counties are now in PJ's region. So Wayne and Steuben moved from Region 1. They are now within Region 2. 4 of PJ's districts are now under different regions. So Onondaga County was previously in Region 2, now in Region 4. Cortland, Tioga, and Broome were previously in Region 2. They are now in Region 3. Let's see, Ryan's region extended was covered a lot of the North Country. So he worked with Franklin, Clinton, Essex, and Washington. So he kind of had to loop up over into the Adirondacks. So you know, a lot of those districts are now transitioning to Ben, who Ben previously oversaw the Southeast region. And so, you know, I guess he's seeing the biggest transition going to almost an entirely new region for him anyway. But the districts within the Southeast portion who previously worked with Ben will now be working with Travis.
Okay, thank you.
So that's not an exact number, but
More than half.
It's like 29 districts, I think, Bethany, altogether are shifting to a new AEA.
Well, and probably over the years, these districts, some of them been shifted back and forth several times from region to region.
Yes.
Because things keep changing. All right.
There's never been a time in, you know, over 20 years that I've been working in this area that the regional coordinators have been so close, so tight, working together on so many different issues. I would venture to guess that's going to really help in this transition. Bethany, you had mentioned that earlier, but I just wanted to provide a little historical context to that as well, and how much they work together on key issues.
Okay, you all set there, Bethany?
I am all set. Thank you very much.
All right, I guess we're going on to the program update with Jason.
Jason, do you need me to pull up your presentation or are you able to share?
Yes, if you have it available, if not, I can log in, but I'm not live right now.
Nope, let me grab it. Hang on one moment for me. Okay. Is that coming through okay on your end?
Yeah, looks good.
Thank you, Bethany.
Okay.
Okay. I'll start with the program status update, and then we don't have any amendments for the day, just letting you know that up front. But starting with our program update and beginning with our active rounds, the news this month is that round 23 has been completed. A final report was approved this month, and we have requested a return fund check for unspent funds from that last contract. This ends round 23, which the contract start date was in July of 2017. So that feels good to get these off the books in full. That round was $18.9 million and 57 contracts, 53 of them were completed successfully. The next old round is round 24. We have 3 remaining active contracts. 2 of them have recent time extensions approved by this board this year, so they're still compliant. And 1 is in pre-review with the region and state committee staff. And in fact, I'm meeting with Ben today to talk about how to wrap this last kind of complicated one up from round 24. Moving on to round 25, this is getting a little more recent, and this is getting into our digital files. So we have 1 closed this last meeting, reflected on the graph. 3 recent extensions were approved by the board, and 3 are late and due. So we'll be following up with letters to districts on these round 25s between now and the next meeting. Going on to round 26 to 29, this is our like post-pandemic chunk of rounds. Round 26, contract start dates were in 2021. No movement there. Round 27, this was in review until this morning, and I got director approval to pay that out. And then round 29, we are starting to get closeouts. We got our first 2 completed contracts in round 29. So that's exciting to see things getting wrapped up so quickly in that round. Moving to round 30, there's not been any kind of movement in our last step was the submission of the procurement record to our state comptroller. That was put in September. So it's not, I'm probably rushing things more, but I'd like to see that because it will start the cascade of our council reviewing round 30 contracts, then getting them out to district signature and to AG signature and comptroller signature, and then execution. But in short, we're just waiting on the comptroller to approve round 30 or come back with any questions that we need. Once we're done with round 30, then we can kind of push forward round 31. That's been approved by this board earlier this year. It's slated to be released in January. And we're just working with council on last, detailed changes. They also want to wait for round 30 to be done before moving forward, but that will be, next calendar year. So, that's it for our program status update. Not much movement on the new rounds, but glad to close out some of these late ones. Any questions for me? Perfect. Thank you.
All righty, thank you, Jason. We are to climate resilient farming program with Jennifer.
Thank you. Perfect. So I do not have any amendments this month. So just some updates, some general program updates. These are just general slides that I've kept in here that explain the program. But right now, round 9 is open. There is 24 million available. The RFP is on SharePoint and the AGM website. The press release was sent out on September 30th through the governor's office. And a final Q&A is being worked on right now and will be posted soon. Round 9 applications are due on SharePoint Monday, November 17th by 5 p.m. So looking forward to round 10, already working on some changes for that RFP and working on some updating outreach materials with the press office and even some possible videos, some exciting things in the works for round 10. This is a table of current contract status from rounds 1 through 9. We have closed out the first 3 rounds of CRF. And round 9 is an open RFP. That is why there's all zeros there. So round 8 is what we just finished contracting. So all of those contracts have been executed And districts are starting to voucher for payment, so projects are starting to move forward. We had awarded 33 million that round. In round 9, we have 24 million available. And I did separate canceled contracts, closed contracts, and active contracts. So you see a difference there. So this is just a graph of the same table, just a different representation. And that's all I had to share this month, unless there are any questions.
Well, it's good to see the first 3 rounds done and the 4th one is pretty well on its way, it looks like.
It is, yeah, we're getting close to finishing up the 4th round, which is great. And then, yeah, 5 through 8 are still have a lot of active projects being worked on, so. But yeah, that's very exciting to close out a first few rounds.
Yeah, yeah.
We started in 2015, so gives you some perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, thank you. All right, we are the 2024 State Aid to District Report and the 2025 Part C Performance Measures Approvals.
That's me. Bethany, do you have that or do you want me to?
I do, and I was just gonna ask if you want me to pull it up. I can do that.
However you want. That's fine.
Yeah. Hold on here.
Sure. So end of August 20 something, we had a state aid to districts forum. So a couple hour long WebEx that districts could call in to review some topics that weren't necessarily pressing, but districts had brought up. So we try to do that once a year and get feedback on specific reports, specific items related to state aid to districts and the annual reporting. This year, most of the discussion was focused on our annual report. The discussion kind of was brought up and generated during last year's reporting period where we used the Google Doc reporting for the first time. And districts didn't necessarily like that. So we were trying to come up with new ways to figure that out. And then the rest of the discussion was focused on performance measures. So just a little recap here on your screen. State aid to districts is broken into parts A, B, and C. Parts A is a 50% reimbursement. Districts can get up to $60,000 for technical expenses. So it's a 50-50 match. Districts show $120,000 worth of expenses. They get 60. For A and B, New York City does qualify for 5 times that amount, for one for each of their counties. Part A, salaries for managers and technicians are eligible reimbursement. However, clerk, secretarial positions are not. Part B is the $6,000 small conservation project pot of money. That has to be pre-approved by us. So currently we're accepting project requests for 2026 and we'll be approving those in the next month. Same thing, New York City gets $30,000, the rest of the state gets the 6. Match is not required, but we do track it when it's reported on the final reports. That salary has to be subtracted off of the Part A reports. So any state funding like AEM or any of our other competitive grants has to be subtracted off of that Part A report. So Part B is in that same category. Part C does not have to be. That's the performance-based funding. We have 5 different performance measures, 4, and that earns that large pot of money. So everything that doesn't get paid out in Part A or Part B falls to Part C, all those remaining funds. So that's the one, as the EPF has increased over the last handful or more years, that's increased dramatically. Again, no match is required, but we do try to track that as best as possible. And salaries can be reported on the Part A report because once earned by the districts, Part C money is considered district funds. So that can be reported for any salaries. Next slide, please. So this just kind of shows the funding over the last few years. We didn't update the chart, but you can see last year there was 17.25 million in the 2024, the money that was paid out in 2025. So in this year's budget, that was increased up to $18 million. So quite a substantial increase, especially, you know, in the last 10 years, it's gone up quite a bit. Next slide. Oh, right. So down at the bottom there, you can go back one, Bethany. Sorry. At the bottom there, it does show. So out of that total 18 million, 3.72 million goes to part A, 372,000 goes to part B for the $6,000 projects, and all the remaining funding goes to part C. So we're looking at about $14 million or so going to part C. All right, now next slide. That's what the next slide should show. You can't quite see the end there because of the picture on the screen. But you can see how much it's gone up. I remember when I started, Ryan said it would be awesome if we could get like up to $300,000 per district, and that was in 2019. And you can see it was only at 180,000. But now if Bethany hits the button one more time, it should show that for 2025 with the $18 million with parts A, B, and C, if a district earns all of those funds, they will be up over $306,000 for this year. So 240 for part C, 60 for A, and 6 for B. So hopefully our districts can earn all that amount of money for this year in 2025. So this money is paid out in increments. We, like I just said, part B, we pay out typically in December. We get them the money for the project to be completed the following year. Part A, those reports have to be reviewed first according to the law. So when they are all submitted into us February 15th, those are the ones we review first and try to get the money out to districts in the next couple of weeks, really by the end of February. And then we dive into the 2 Part C performance measure reports to be reviewed and paid out really before water quality symposium and before the state hits the blackout period, so that the districts can have that money in their bank accounts and not be waiting until whenever the blackout period is over, which is typically May or June. We don't want to keep them waiting for their money. But that does mean we have to, you know, hit those reports pretty hard and try to get them reviewed as fast as possible, and then do that follow-up process with the district. Next slide, Bethany. All right, so back to the annual report. This was kind of our focus, our main focus at the forum that we had a couple months ago. We did a brief recap of the SPAC meeting that was held back in, I believe, April. And then we kind of talked about the format of the annual report. We wish we could go back to what we used to use as an Adobe form, but because parts of that were discontinued by Adobe, that's not an option any longer, which is why last year we shifted to the Google Docs. Most districts didn't care for those, so we pivoted, tried to find a new option. I should say the Google Doc for performance measures kind of works. It's a smaller, less questions overall. It's easier kind of to fill out, so we can get as many negative complaints about using the Google Doc for performance measures, but we did for the annual report. You can see there's 2 other things listed there. Tyler Knapp started working on a very sophisticated Excel form that has a lot of tabs and flipping back and forth, and it's really cool. So we kind of tested that a little bit with districts. The feedback was mixed. Some liked it a lot, some didn't. There was a lot of tracking built into it that we think long-term could work. We got to keep working on it, and maybe, you know, by the end of next year, maybe we can get there. But Bethany kind of took what Tyler did and created a more simple Excel form. And that's what we went through on this meeting with the districts. And the feedback to that seemed to be accepted. You know, it was well received, better than the Google Doc. It's a little bit more straightforward. We have individual sheets to break down the sections of the annual report. So again, the feedback there seemed to be really good. And what we also did is we went through the entire report question by question to see if any items should be removed. If state committee's not using those questions for our annual report or any sort of reporting, state level, do they need to be in there? Are there any things that could be added? So we took out a lot of the funding questions, stuff we don't use, like where the funding comes from for various activities and what it's used for. Traditionally, we haven't used that data, so we took that out right off the bat. And then there was other sections that we're going to remove, and some of them that districts would like us to keep in there for their own tracking purposes. So we haven't landed on a completely final version of this yet. We're still kind of working on it. But making notes of what some districts across the state would like us to leave in there, even if state committee doesn't actually use that data. The one big thing we are going to take out that added to the complexity of the Google Doc last year was we had a whole section on the end that really focused it on like ag BMPs that districts implemented, but not with our competitive funding. So maybe it was Part C funded, that sort of stuff. That's somewhat already captured with our other reports. So we're going to take that out because that just adds to the, like I said, the complexity of the document overall. And then we just separated out. We did add in a few extra recycling program categories. Before, all of the recycling, whether it was tires, ag plastics, computers, electronics, that sort of thing, were all lumped into one category. We did try to break that out a little bit more in that, in the report to capture that. Next slide, Bethany. So once that discussion was over, we did go back into performance measures to discuss any additions to the report for this year. That's those additions to like 1G or the other performance measures, which would be 2 or 4. That's on a coming slide. We're based on either things we noticed in-house, which were I think just one category. And then throughout the years, we get special requests from the districts in. They can ask for permission to use another meeting or an event as to fit one of these categories. So we track all of that and we see if any of those are worthy as getting like permanent approval to show up on our performance measure worksheet. So we discussed that. We also discussed incentivizing participation in other events. That conversation was good. The general feedback that districts said though was they don't want us to change the report so it really negatively affects other districts. So we incentivize something and everybody can't participate in that program or that item, it might end up throwing more funding in the direction of certain districts and not other districts. Other feedback we received, even after the meeting was over, we got some emails that basically said, we don't feel like that's necessarily state committee's purview to try to focus on improving participation in these different boards or events. You know, that should maybe fall more on CDA or NYACD to try to figure that out. Obviously, we'll always help as a partner. Just maybe throwing it into performance measures or other reports isn't the best fit for that. And then the last thing was the percentages, which we discuss every year. Each of the 5 performance measures have certain percentages assigned to them. So we just tried to get feedback if they should be changed or not. They were tweaked a few years ago after COVID. We used a survey to take into account what all the districts across the state felt like were the hardest performance measures to complete, and also what they thought those percentages should be. And those percentages obviously directly correlate to how much money each one of those performance measures are worth. Next slide. All right, so these are those performance measure additions. We're kind of jumping around here, I guess, but these are the performance measure additions. So there's only a few added. So NYACD monthly meetings was requested this year, I believe by Herkimer. So that was given a permanent approval. So any board members that attend that meeting, call into that meeting, that would be eligible for 1G. There's no new 2As, but for 2Bs, We used to just have one item that was listed as classroom education. But looking at all the work the districts do throughout the year, a lot of it's focused on, elementary school, there's high school, there's college work that districts are doing in the classroom. So we thought it would be a good idea to actually separate that into 3 different categories. So they're going to have that option of like primary, secondary, tertiary to choose from. So it should be easier if districts are working with schools fairly often to have more options and more credit for the work that they're doing throughout the year. And then performance measure 4, I believe this was requested by Albany County Soil and Water, is DEC's New York Drinking Water Source Protection program, which we actually saw those folks had a booth. I believe it was at NYACD this year. So that was good to kind of tie those things together, even though it was not intentional. So those all are, up for our voting member approval on our proposed performance measure worksheet for 2026. Next slide. This should be going back to the percentages. So you can see there what the percentages were 2019, 2023. That was kind of what it was before COVID. And then we kept the same ones in 2023, kind of like after COVID, when we felt districts were all back up and running and could fully earn the full performance measures again. We used that as a launching point with the survey to come up with the 2024 percentages. And like I said, that survey kind of showed us where districts felt everything needed to be. So we shifted and updated them to then. And based on our conversations with districts and at this state aid forum meeting, we didn't really get any feedback. Districts seem to be, or no feedback to change anything. So districts seem to be comfortable and happy with leaving the performance measures where they are. So we're proposing to just keep them as is for 2026. And then once the data comes in for all the reporting in February, we will reanalyze that again and see if any changes need to be made for 2027. I believe that's the last slide? Yep, that's the last slide there. Bethany, do you want to throw the performance measure worksheet up there?
Yes.
So the worksheet's pretty much just going to have the same information I just went over. It just has it in a worksheet form. And this is what we send out to districts each year. So they can kind of compare the previous year to this year, see what changes we made. So they can kind of prep and make sure they're have all their ducks in a row.
Are you seeing the worksheet?
Yep, thank you. So that's the worksheet. It's broken down by performance measures and by the standard for each section. The items in red are the new ones that got added, which is what I just went over in the PowerPoint. And all the percentages are the same. So at the top there where it says 2026 performance measure standard, you can see that's still the same. It's not in red because it did not change. So this is just going to show, right, 2A, nothing changed. All those options are the same as they were for last year. 2B, this is where we separated out the classroom education choices from 1 and turned it into 3 different options. Obviously, there's date updates and things in here. Performance measure 3 did not change. 4, we added in the DWSP2 program from DEC into that. And performance measure 5 did not change either. So we do ask the districts if they have any other suggestions at our meetings throughout the year. Obviously, we get a good amount of special requests throughout the year. I think it's typically 10 or 15 requests. Sometimes it's lower. Last couple of years, it's been lower. But maybe that's because we're throwing a few more items into these lists occasionally. And And that gives districts more options, so they don't necessarily have to submit as many special requests. But most of ours get like a one-time, 1-year approval and not that permanent approval. So I think for today, ultimately, we're just looking for approval from the board to accept or make changes to the performance measure worksheet for anybody's got any questions. So then we can put it out to the districts soon for 2026. Did I get that right, Bethany? Need anything else?
Nope, that's all we need today. And once I stop sharing my screen and have a second, or if maybe someone's quicker, I'd like to re-share the link to our 2024 State Committee / Agricultural Environmental Management Annual Report, because we have been working to try to build in a little bit more information about the state aid to district programs and some of those stats from all those reports that districts get. And, the information that we included in that report was all from 2024. And it's just really impressive numbers. So, when we're talking about the performance measures here on the screen, those are tied to Part C of the state aid to districts funding. So if districts can prove that they've met all these performance standards, then they, can receive that Part C money. And that, I believe, is a really critical piece for districts in terms of building staff capacity. In 2024, districts were able to use Part C funding to fully support some staff. So 26 of our districts reported that staff were fully supported by Part C funds, which I think is pretty impressive. 204 district staff statewide are partially supported by Part C funds. And in 2024, 13 districts were able to add additional staff because of Part C funding, which is, directly tied to these performance measures. So I just wanted to highlight those stats again and encourage folks to look at the annual report, because this is a really important program for districts and something that we need to keep going. So, sorry, said more than what you wanted me to.
All right, is there any other discussion concerning the conditions, changes?
Yeah, I appreciate those comments, Bethany. That is helpful for me to better understand the value of these standards. My question I put in the chat, what if a district doesn't meet them? Is there a way to help that district in the next year, or is that just something that doesn't happen?
Yeah, usually if a district doesn't meet something, it's generally performance measure 1 that's directly correlated to director participation, whether it's director training or those 1G meetings. That's most often what districts don't meet. Occasionally there might be something else, but we were on a pretty good streak for a while where we had a number of years where all the districts met every performance measure for a few years. And then the last couple we have had some that have not, but we do try to work directly with them. A lot of the times it doesn't require, I'll say, a lot of effort on our part. They really know, like, yeah, we screwed up. Yeah, we didn't have enough meetings, something. So it's not like we have to, hold their hand or anything to make those changes. I would say, I'm not sure we've ever had it. Not in the last 10 plus years. I don't know if we've ever had a district that didn't meet performance measures like 2 years in a row. If they don't meet it last year, I think they've always got back up to par and met them the following year. And that money doesn't go to waste. It trickles down to the other districts. So it is still getting spent and paid out. Last year, we did have a number that did not meet performance measure 1. That was all tied to the new policies that we put into place. So there was a few that didn't meet it because of that reason. But they seem to all be headed in the right direction to make sure they had them for this year to get full credit for 2025.
Okay, thank you. And you anticipated my second question about what happens with that funding. So thank you.
I think the one good thing is there is a lot of opportunities there for directors to attend various meetings to make sure they do meet the standard. And so and a lot of these things are kind of scattered throughout the state too. So
And there are a lot of remote options now,
That
including
too.
this meeting, right?
Yeah.
You call into this
Yeah.
meeting, put your name in the chat and it counts.
The one thing I would encourage is if we continue to do, and I hope we do, have a tour like we did in August of, or was it July? July. Neighboring district directors to attend that tour and see some of the work that's being done in their neighboring counties, so that they might learn something new or see something they hadn't seen before. And so I think there's a great opportunity there with that tour for some of the directors to attend and learn something new as far as what the districts are doing.
Right.
So,
And get credit for it at the same time.
right. All right, if there's no other discussion, we need a motion to approve those changes.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Okay, we'll go to voting. Darren,
Aye.
Megan,
Aye.
Maureen,
Aye.
and aye for me as well, so the motion is approved.
Thank you.
All righty, we are to the reforestation and afforestation guidance for New York with Molly Hassett from DEC.
Yes, really quick, Molly, before you jump in, I just want to, introduce the topic. Several weeks ago, I saw an email come through that this reforestation, afforestation guidance for New York was developed, and I shared it out with districts, and I got looking through the guidance the other day, and I thought this would be a really nice topic for the state committee. So I reached out to Molly, who was part of the group who developed that guidance in collaboration with the Nature Conservancy. So I really appreciate Molly coming today and sharing a little bit about the guide with the state committee.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sometimes when I'm not connected directly to my desktop, it gets a little funky, but I'm glad. I want to also just recognize for a second that TNC was a big part of this guide as well in getting it published. And Mandy St. Hilaire, I believe, will be joining us pretty soon. She was actually supposed to start the presentation, but that is okay. I should be able to start it. Let's see if I can share it. If possible, Bethany, if you see Mandy sign on, would you let me know?
Sure.
So that maybe I can stop and hand it over to her. Okay. So we have developed the reforestation and afforestation guide for New York. And this was put together with like a whole bunch of team members, me included, but also several people from TNC. And we also did a lot of consulting. I think we worked with Lydia Brinkley from the Upper Susquehanna Coalition, as well as others. So hopefully it'll be a good starting point for landowners. And let me actually enter the slideshow view, right? Seeing that okay? All right.
That's good.
So we wrote this guide as a starting point for landowners, municipalities, and other organizations who are starting to look at planning a reforestation or afforestation project. Mostly the guide is related to tree planting compared to natural regeneration. And this guide has a lot of good references to additional documents and other tools that are out there too. So it can kind of serve as a bit of a one-stop shop for folks who are looking to get started on a project.
Hey, Molly.
Yeah?
I see that Mandy just signed on.
Perfect. Well, that's like actually perfect timing.
Great.
Hi, everybody. Excuse me. Sorry to just be joining, but happy to be here. Molly, thanks for starting. And I missed my intro. Hi, everybody. My name's Mandy St. Hilaire. I work with Molly and some additional team members at the Nature Conservancy and DEC on this guide. And I'm the reforestation manager for the Nature Conservancy in New York. And it sounds like, Molly, you were kind of outlining this first slide here, but I just wanted to add that this, I feel like the origin story of products like this is really relevant. I'm not sure, Molly, if you already mentioned this, but so the old executive director of the Adirondack Parks Invasive Plant Partnership was tasked to create some invasive species guidelines for plant material for reforestation. And in that process, she actually remembered that Molly had also worked on this or something similar with invasive species in a previous position. And a lot of what is in here is really like resurfaced work that Molly had done and that Tamara had started. And then we really were encouraged, I think, like really by Tamara to make this into something more comprehensive that could be utilized for folks like you all who might need a little bit more guidance or access to resources as it relates to what does it mean to plan a project. So just feel like that's always a good thing to share. Like, why do we have this? Where did it come from? So that's where it came together. And yeah, it was a really great collaborative process and happy to be here to be sharing it with you all. So I don't, Molly, is there anything else that you'd add to that origin story?
No, that was perfect, Mandy. Yeah, and all I did was start talking about like who it's for. So that's, yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So this could really be for people who are familiar with planting projects or planting, reforestation and afforestation projects. But it's certainly geared towards folks who have never planned a project before. So what does it take? What are the considerations that you have to make? And it's really something that we're encouraging folks that are newer to reforestation and afforestation practices to use as a guiding framework. And I really want to emphasize the fact that this guide has a lot of additional resources in it. So while it's great as a standalone product, it's available on the 25 Million Trees Initiative website. So it's a PDF that has a lot of clickable links to additional resources to help, why are we making this recommendation in this guidance document? Where is this information coming from? So yes, print it out if that's helpful, but using it online is definitely the best way to use it. So you can really click through the additional resources that might be helpful. So there's 4 sections. I will also say this guide is like very text heavy. There's not a ton of images in it, even though we did work really hard on making it a very readable document. So what we thought today was best, instead of just kind of like scrolling through a lot of text to show you, is just giving a really high level look at each of the sections in the reforestation and afforestation guide. So there's 4 sections. There's the timeline, which is a pretty short, like 1 page that just outlines what is coming down in the guide, and then some more robust sections on site planning, implementation, and maintenance and monitoring. So if we go to the next slide, we have the timeline. Next slide. Great. So again, this is a really brief overview in the very beginning of the guide, but it really sets the tone of what to expect in the remainder. So it's organized by these 3 different parts of what we consider the planning timeline. So the site planning, implementation, and maintenance and monitoring period, which really is could be far beyond the timeline that we have outlined here. But with maintenance and monitoring, we say it begins usually between year 2 and 4, and then depending on a number of factors like your funding structure or just like your general project plans, like that maintenance and monitoring period could definitely be greater than 2 to 4 years. So in each of these major sections within the guide, we have these steps. So in site planning, we have 4 steps that we go into greater detail on. And with implementation, there are 3 steps that have greater detail. Then with maintenance and monitoring, there's 3 as well. So we'll start with the first section, or I guess the second section against the timeline, which is site planning. Let me go to the next slide. So here are the steps that I was just mentioning. So we have 4 steps. First step, establish the goals and identify your funding source. Step 2 is assess the site. Step 3, choose which species to plant. And step 4, establish your maintenance and monitoring schedule. So it's really all of the major steps and decision points that come in when you're starting a project and all of the things that you need to think about and plan for in order to get to the point of implementation, which is that next section. So we'll talk a little bit in detail about these steps in the next slide. So step 1, establish your goals and identify funding sources, which often go very hand in hand. But when you're identifying property goals, a lot of that has to do with who's involved, what type of landowner, are there additional partners, and making sure that everyone is on the same page of the why. Like, why are you planting trees on this site? Is it for carbon? Is it for wildlife benefits? Is it for a specific type of wildlife? Is it for water quality? All of these types of goals really play a pretty big factor in all the other planning steps, like your species selection or the layout of your project or access points that you might need for maintenance or for any other use on the site. And then again, often linked to goals is some of the stipulations that are often set forth in where the funding is coming from. So there's usually goals with that funding as well. So making sure that those 2 things are married together is very important. And then of course, the 25 Million Trees webpage has a link to funding opportunities and resources for that. Next slide. Or anything, Molly, that you'd add about the 25 Million Trees website there?
No, I think I do talk about it a little bit later too. So we will come back to it.
Okay, great. All right, site assessment. As much as we can use technology to support us in looking aerially and chatting with partners about a site, you really have to get out there and see what you're working with. And I know for this group, that's probably preaching to the choir. So we have just a number of things that you'd consider for, again, like even beyond a planting project, just like any sort of project that's going to require in-ground work. So what type of existing vegetation is on the site, and you'll see in the guide, this is where there's some invasive species management considerations that you might incorporate into your planning. What the climate is like, so like the region that you're in, or even if there's microclimates on site, if there's changes in the amount of daylight depending on where you are on your project site. What type of soil you're working with. Does it change as you look at the whole parcel? Water resources. Is there standing water on the site? Is there an existing spring? Is it really dry? Like, these are all things that really end up factoring into the types of woody species that you select for your site. Deer pressure, which is another huge one in New York, especially, because that really, again, with species selection plays a huge role in, do you need tree tubes? Do you increase the density of trees the density of the trees that you're planting on the site to factor in the likelihood that you're going to have some deer browse? And then you have forest pests, which is another invasive species component in this, and consideration of, are there any threats existing to any of the species that I would select for this site, or things that I want to consider that might be more resistant to future forest pests. And next slide. Choosing species. So this is another, I'd say this is a section actually in the guide that has a lot of different resources to point you to, different species lists that you could look at, different resources that could help you think about, you know, sourcing as it relates to like potential changes in climate over time. Like there's a lot in this section that I definitely encourage you to look at and click through, and I'll cover one of the resources in that section in the next slide. But with selecting species, especially as it relates to things that we don't know about, like future forest pests, you want to have a diversity of species that you're selecting for your site. So it's not just one, it's not just two, even up to 5 to 10 or more species on the site can really help build in that resiliency, especially as you think about not just future condition, but if there's a year like this year where there's periods of wet and really long periods of dry, you have some different species in your mix that can tolerate different sorts of extremes. So that's what we mean by diversity here. And then your reference site. So really getting on the ground and looking around, what is here? What is in down the road, or what is in the forest within the parcel that you're working with, so that you can pull in information from your local area that informs what sort of species that you're selecting for your site. And then I'm going to talk about the species list, and then Molly will talk about her selection tool she's working on. Spacing is the last thing that I'll talk about on this slide, which is, again, this is back to funding. There's usually a stipulation in there, depending on your funding source, on what your density is going to be. So a really common one that I see and that we use even in the TNC incentives that we work on is 500 stems per acre. That's actually a ton of trees. In riparian plantings, can vary. It can be 150 to 250 stems an acre, and that all affects your spacing. So I just want to say, like, the biggest thing with spacing is you have two different angles to work with. You have your in-row spacing where the trees are in, if you're doing it if you're doing rows, you have your in-row spacing, and you have your in-between row spacing. That's where you can toggle where there's increases in density. And it's really about managing for or planning for the type of equipment that you're going to be using if maintenance is part of your plan. So often you're maybe increasing the amount of trees in row so that you have a greater amount of space in between the rows, so that you can fit your brush hog or your skid steer, or maybe you have a truck that you need to be able to drive through there. Who knows? So those are the types of things that are really important when thinking about spacing as well. So the next slide is our priority species list. And I'm going to try my best, Molly, to breeze through this because I realize it's already 11:15. So at the Nature Conservancy, we worked with the Ecological Health Network going on like over a year ago now, where we finalized a collaborative priority species list for reforestation in New York. So this was our final list that we put together, and I'm gonna go, actually, I know this is really quick, but go to the next slide just to talk about what it is. So if anyone is interested in this, I'm happy to supply a link. We have a flyer, we have a decision support tool to select species. It's all linked in the reforestation guide as well, so you can always find it there. But the real goal of this was to create a multi-criteria framework that allowed us to look at a number of different categories, like economic value, global change tolerance, production stipulations, to see which species out of 102 native tree species only, in New York could be ranked and prioritized as like a top 40 to start to signal on the demand side what species will likely be in highest demand as we think about these really ambitious reforestation goals that we have in New York. So that was the real priority with this list. And then it's also for helping people make decisions around like, wait, there's all of these tree species. How do I choose one? And so it is meant to help narrow down within like a top set of species, like which ones might suit your goals. So we were also thinking about how we can maximize co-benefits from planting trees when we put this list together. And then also creating a methodology that really, again, encompass like, how do we look at the whole state versus like just a region to think about the amount of demand that might be needed across many, many, many different projects instead of just a smaller subset. So the next slide is who should be using this list. So folks like you who are interacting with landowners, interacting with nurseries, so that we can really start to have more of a collective voice around what sort of trees that we all need so that we're signaling on the demand side where we need more of specific species. So really encouraging nursery operators to know these are the species that we need more of and to start scaling up. So yeah, that's wholesale customers, tree seed collectors, anyone planting trees or planning projects or people who are funding projects, and then everybody else under the sun. Great list. Highly encourage you to go check it out. And then the next slide, I just wanted to really quickly mention, it's again, I keep saying quickly, trying my best here, but nursery incubation program. So we awarded over $300,000 to 2 nurseries that are in Western New York from our first round of funding this past, well, it was announced in January, but we awarded the funds this past spring, and we pair capacity building funds to growers with an advanced procurement contract. So again, coming back to that demand side, we use that species list to plan out what we're going to need most likely for stock for projects 2 and 3 years out so that we can invest in the capacity building required at the nursery level so that they can build their supply and then secure the demand on the TNC side. So next slide.
Is this the slide you wanted, Mandy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So the goal, the goal is to increase the amount of seedlings in the supply chain by up to 100,000 trees by 2028, and to again really encourage more capacity building to supply trees for all of our great reforestation work in New York. And next slide should be the last one for the program. Or no, good, perfect. We're moving on to Molly. Thank you, everybody.
And I just wanted to say, in addition to like all the great work that the Nature Conservancy and their partners have been working on too, we at DEC were working on a reforestation species selection tool with the New York Natural Heritage Program. So the map is still in development. So unfortunately, it's not actually inside the guide that we're showing you guys today, but hopefully we can send it out and get some folks trying it out in the future. But the idea for this map, and we do have like kind of a model in development that we've started like clicking through and trying to see what it spits back out. The map would be like, you click on a location on a site, and in the background, this map would look at conditions like your soil type. It would look at the natural communities in that area. It would look at some of the other conditions at the site, like if it's near a riparian zone or not, if it's got like poor drainage, and kind of filter that down to what natural communities like technically belong inside that site. And knowing like what natural communities could fit at that site, it spits out a list of potential suitable species. And on that list, it's got some of the information like part sun, part shade, if it needs average drainage soils, or some of the other information that might be helpful for the site manager. And a really cool thing that Natural Heritage is working into the tool is they have like a side panel, which I'm not sure if it's going to look like a side panel when it's actually finalized, but they've got a panel where you can go in and, as the land manager, you might see like, oh, it's recommending that the site is, all these wet species. You can bring out that panel and see like, oh, it says that the soil is wet, and you can kind of adjust that to what you actually know is at the site. So you can play around with it and even to some extent like click on area and then just like choose what you know to be the site conditions and see what species are spit back out to you. And we think that this tool would be helpful for like initial project development and initial species list development. Of course, like looking at surrounding reference sites and having all of that sort of information, I think is really still important for developing a species list. And considering some of the different like rating factors and priority lists that like TNC has and some of the other lists that are out there is also important. So it's kind of helping to be like a starting point of like, okay, here's some species we think could actually do well there. So more to come on that. Maybe a future presentation. I'll try to keep you guys in the loop. Let's see. All right. So inside the guide itself, we are still inside the site planning step or phase of the guide. And we're on step 4, which is establishing your maintenance and monitoring schedule. So inside the guide, it talks a lot about the importance of having maintenance and monitoring, and having a schedule ahead of time is for ensuring the success of the project. It's also about, kind of budgeting for maintenance and monitoring as part of the project, and like making sure you have staff available who can go out and like check to see if the project is successful in the future. And it's important to have this like upfront as part of the planning phase, so you don't get to the end of like tree planting and suddenly not actually have the resources to do maintenance and monitoring. Now, the details for maintenance and monitoring are in a later step and a later section of this guide. So I'll cover like what specifically about maintenance and monitoring is included a little bit later on. Now, on to section 3 of the guide, which is implementation. Sometimes thought of as the most fun part of the project, right? Actually getting the trees in the ground. So for implementation, step 1 that we have here is what to look for in a nursery. Thinking about getting what are you looking for the plants that you're trying to get? What should they look like? Step 2 is site preparation, getting ready for planting. Step 3 is when to plant. Step 4 is some practical tips for planting. And then step 5 is tracking your trees. So for step 1, what to look for in a nursery, some of the different things that are covered inside the guide are trying to get locally adapted plants. The guide briefly talks about invasive species, as well as like, should you choose a cultivar, or maybe if there's something else at your local nursery that isn't a cultivar, maybe trying to go with that. It also talks about plant health. There's a pretty good list of different signs of plants that are in poor health that you should not buy from a nursery inside the guide. And it also covers different kinds of plant material options. So you can see the table here. It's very tiny, probably on your screens, but in the guide it's bigger. It's a good table just for comparison of bare root, containerized, liners and plugs, cuttings and live stakes, balled and burlap. Kind of covers the advantages and disadvantages of each one to hopefully try to advise folks like what kind of plant material should I buy? All right, implementation, the second step is preparing the site. This part of the section, or this part of the step starts with some general considerations for preparing the site. It talks about not trying to disturb like natural areas that already have natural regeneration too much, trying not to like compact the soil and actually like make things like harder for plants to grow while you're going in to prepare the site. And then some of the different parts of the section are, of course, removing or avoiding invasive species that are at the site. Soil compaction, maybe do some tilling or something, depending on how compacted the soil is. What to do for or consider for topsoil replacement, if you need topsoil replacement, in case your topsoil is like really heavily contaminated with salt or other issues. Soil pH. So thinking about if you need soil amendments, or maybe if the soil is way too out of whack, you might need a temporary cover plant for a couple of years until you're ready to plant. So that's step 2. So step 3 is talking about when to plant. Inside the guide, it talks a lot about, spring or fall planting, which is pretty well known. It talks about spring being the best for bare root stock for the most part, disturbed sites, and even some species. There's like a list of species that tend to do better when they're planted in the spring than in the fall, and you can see that in the guide. As well as probably consider spring planting for areas that are vulnerable to flooding, really wet or really dry soils, areas with longer winters, and areas with earlier frosts. The guide also talks about choosing a day with moderate temperatures and moisture. This picture is actually from a Miyawaki forest planting we did in Albany this past spring, and it was a very wet day. We were planting in puddles, which was good kind of for the plants because they started with a lot of moisture in the soil, but planting in puddles, not always the best thing. Couldn't really tell how deep it was sometimes. Step 4, some practical tips are included here in the guide for implementation. It talks about planting labor, kind of talking just broadly about using volunteers versus using natural resource professionals or folks who have a little bit more experience or might, have a little bit more kind of feel for the project and like what's going on. Some of the trade-offs of using those two different kinds of labor. Talks about plant care, following up with the plants, making sure that they're watered potentially if there's a really droughty period, if you can. Again, we have invasive species in here. It is a really important part of planting. So trying to avoid inadvertent movement of invasive species. Like if you're bringing over mulch, try to make sure that mulch doesn't have invasive species in it or seeds. And speaking of mulch, it's got another table, which is larger in the guide, with a comparison of different types of mulch, like wood chips and shavings, gravel, crushed stone and slag, shredded leaves, pine needles, buckwheat, sawdust, grass, hay, wood excelsior, and corn stalk. So it's got kind of a overall view of some of those different kinds of mulches, just so the folks thinking about doing a project have an idea of what's available to them. And step 5 is implementation. Track your trees. So in New York State, we have that 25 million trees goal. I think maybe Annabella has talked to you guys before, and if not, I can get her in touch if you want. So we've been trying to track all of the trees that have been planted in New York State since, was it January 2021? Or maybe 2024? 2024. And we have a map on the 25 Million Trees website, as well as a button that looks very similar to this green, I guess, button sort of thing towards the top middle of the screen, where you can click on it and record your tree plantings. Any tree counts, so even if you're planting one tree, please enter it in if you can. And it's a pretty easy to fill out form. It just asks about species, if you know what species, general location, if you're okay with the location being shared. And yeah, we're trying to keep track of as many trees as we can to work towards that 25 million trees goal. So now, section 4, maintenance and monitoring. I think this section is pretty brief in the guide, but it doesn't make it any less important. So the different steps that we have inside maintenance and monitoring are caring for your trees. Again, that gets back to watering during a drought, trying to straighten the trees if they fall over, straightening the tree tubes and adjusting them. All sorts of, tree care that you need to do to make sure that the project's successful. Step 2 of maintenance and monitoring is actually monitoring the progress and making sure that those trees are surviving, and also looking for potential problems that are rising up. Are the trees getting hit by some sort of pest? Are voles moving in and girdling the trees? These are things that are helpful to know in a project in case, some sort of extra maintenance is needed. And step 3 is evaluating and documenting those results. So especially for larger programs, it's really important to keep track of are the trees living overall inside the program? How are they doing? Are they all getting hit by some sort of pest or pathogen? And kind of documenting those results will be really helpful in the future as the climate continues to change and potentially some species turn out to be more winners or losers than others and do better or worse. Or, it could help just pick sites too. If you have similar site conditions between two, you could look back at one site and say, oh, red maple did really poor here. Maybe we shouldn't plant it at this other site. And I believe that is it. So thank you for listening to us today. Let us know if you have any questions. I think I saw one in the chat already.
Molly, I have a question. Your mapping tool you mentioned, is that mostly focused for urban forestry, or is that going to be kind of any across the state?
Across the state, and I would say it's actually not really urban forestry focused. I know the dot that was inside the picture, I also presented at the Watershed Forum, and that's near where the Watershed Forum was several weeks ago in the Upper Susquehanna region. But yeah, I would say it's more of a not urban tool because urban areas, the soils are so unpredictable and there's a lot of conditions that you can't really get from some of that background data. So a lot of that's more probably you have to actually figure that out at the site itself. But I think it will give you a list even in urban areas. It's probably better for more rural areas though.
Okay. Do you have a launch timeline?
We don't quite have a launch timeline yet, but we do have a draft tool. So hopefully next year, maybe early next year, but that is just hopeful. So
Okay, I have one more.
Spring planting.
Yeah. I have one more question. Your suggested tree species list, was any of the factors considered related to carbon sequestration?
Is that a question about the priority species list?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did have something in there. One of the great things about the Nature Conservancy is that we have some really great carbon scientists out work with us. And we did incorporate a study that was done during the priority species list multi-criteria framework development that was incorporated in there. So it's kind of new, if you will. And if you go into I'll give you a train of information, but if you go to the guide, there's a link to the collaborative priority species list information that includes all of the information about that framework and where the data originated from. So while for that particular one, there's nowhere to click a link and go to the place that it exists, it does talk about where the information came from and like how the criteria was developed and like what the scoring system is that the trees received based off of that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Can the priority species list be used for an existing stand for forest management?
It's a great question. We did not develop it for that. It's really focused on the supply and demand piece as it relates to tree plantings and not for existing stands. That's a great question.
Well, I'm kind of wondering though, if you have a stand with a lot of young saplings, for example, that are overcrowded, need to be thinned. I'm wondering if it would be useful to decide like which species to thin and which ones to leave, if that, because I know a lot of times you're looking at just like value for lumber. Is kind of what their goal is, but
there is one category in the priority species list called economic value, and then one of the categories in there is timber. So you could always go to the information that we provided as like the set of deliverables from the project that shows which species ranked based off of economic value. So there might be like a part of the information provided in the back end of the priority list that might help what you're talking about.
well, I guess what I'm thinking is if you're not necessarily, if you're managing it in a way that where you're not necessarily just focused on the economic, but long-term benefits in other ways, you know, that's kind of what I'm thinking is
yeah.
It would be useful or if you're looking at, you know, the big picture like that versus just one.
It hasn't been used in that way yet, but if I would be really curious to see what you come up with, like if you were to look at some of that additional information for each species in the priority list that we have available, and if you think that that would help in that situation, I'd be really curious to hear if
I'll have to take a look at it because I'm thinking just for my own benefit, there might be a way that it could be used to kind of guide the management a little bit.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We have so the team that I'm on includes an improved forest management team that includes a forester. I don't know if you know Chris Zimmerman.
No.
So he's a forester on our team, and he was part of the development of the priority species list. But yeah, he would be a great resource. Like if you do end up trying to use the species list in this way, he would be somebody that I would probably tap for some of his input on how how it could be used for both.
Maybe I've got a question for you guys. In the analysis of the tool, is it possible to see like what is maybe the top 3 or 5 trees most likely to be represented based on soils, acres, conditions? What's the top tree or the top 3 trees that the tool regularly suggests?
The top 3 are all maple. Red maple, silver maple, sugar maple, I think are the top 3. If we go back.
Red and surprisingly red and silver.
Yeah. So then that's based off of all of the data. One of the criteria is amount of the frequency that a species shows up across different forest types and land types. So that is another reason that a species would be higher up in the priority species list. And I'll also say with this priority species list, while there's like clearly a ranking system, right? So like 1 is the highest ranking, 40 would be lower, of the 102 species, like 102 would be the lowest priority rank. We're still looking at this more holistically, and like these are 40 species that we're working with, and there just might be certain species for a TNC project that we just weight more heavily in terms of quantity that we're using it across many sites and across like each project, but we're still looking at this list as like more holistic way of saying of these species, which ones are the most suitable for this project versus this project. And then typically what we're seeing is the higher ranking ones are just species that often originate across more sites. So we're just using them more often.
Does that inform what the nurseries are going to be planting in anticipation of these millions of trees?
That's what we're working on. We're working on utilizing this priority species list as a demand signal. And the way that we're doing that at TNC is anytime we send out an RFQ or we are including this as what we need, or the advanced procurement contracts that we have through our nursery incubation program, we're utilizing this list to inform what we expect the nurseries to grow for those contracts. And then with any partners that we're working on for implementation and working with landowners, this would be like, quote unquote, the approved species list for them to use for implementation and for planning the project.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there was a question that was entered into the chat. I'll just kind of read it out. So the tool looks really, really effective and similar to some of the other tools that have been developed by Cornell Cooperative Extension. Do you see any possibility to weave in some silvopasture, adding trees to open pasture, into this guidance?
I think that was for Molly's tool presentation.
Yeah. Well, so I guess the tool that we're making is more focused on like natural communities and what would be there. Well, not necessarily without humans, because of course everything's because it is the way it is because of humans. We were here long, long ago. I mean, the tool will have potentially some species that can fit into silvopasture, but it definitely won't be like silvopasture based, you know? Yeah, or agroforestry based either. I think that would have to be like another layer that the land manager or the landowner would have to kind of filter from the larger lists and say like, okay, I've got this list of 50 species, which I should also mention, I don't think I said this before, not just trees, also shrubs, also herbaceous, if folks want to go that way. And kind of filter like that very long list down to like, okay, well, maybe black locust is really good for this silvopasture project that I want to do. Or maybe like I want more like masting species. Like maybe I want some more oaks inside my project or something like that. So the manager, I think themselves would have to go through the list and kind of pick out species like, here's what we think works on the site, and like, here's what actually works for my goals, you know? I think some of that the tool isn't going to be able to do.
Yeah, for
This is Kitty O'Neill. I'm the one that typed that in, and if it seems like there could be slightly overlapping goals maybe, I would love to have a chat with you and share with you what I've learned from some of the silvopasture people about which species they like to use and why and where. And I realize so far the tool has very different goals, and I applaud that. But if there's a way to combine, it would be a lovely way to link together forestry mitigation goals and agriculture, if it ever made any sense. So maybe I'll follow up with an email to you.
Yeah, no, please do. We were also having some conversations where like when it outputs the list of species, maybe we could have like a column for notes where maybe it designates like, oh, this is one of the species on TNC's guide. Maybe we could also have like some sort of like star or something for like some kind of agroforestry or silvopasture like overlap. I'm not sure, but potentially, yes. Let's talk more.
The guide in general, pretty applicable to any size project, you know, from very small like acreage to tens of acres size project.
Yes.
I guess I would say for like really tiny projects, like if you're planting just a few trees, like 5 trees, maybe you don't need to plan so far ahead with the nursery, or like, maybe there's some steps that you could walk back a bit. But yeah, I do think overall, if you walk through all of these steps from the guide and kind of follow the overall planning for the guide, it's still useful.
Any other questions out there for Molly and Mandy?
Well, thank you,
I
Molly,
just-
man.
Go ahead, Matt.
I just wanted to thank them for taking the time to share that with us. It was very, very helpful.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Completely agree. Thank you so much for your time today.
Of course.
And I see Molly dropped the link in the chat as well, so the digital version with the hot links are there for folks to download. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I guess we are up to the reports. We'll start with the voting members, and I just want to mention that we had in our county recently, the Upper Hudson Watershed Coalition met, and the feedback on the meeting was excellent. The directors from the district that went from our county really enjoyed it, thought it was a very good meeting. And it was interesting that John Parrish, the district manager, was going to speak about the shared services he had done with the town where the meeting was held. And one of the town representatives happened to walk in, didn't know what was going on, but happened to walk in to the meeting, and John had him do the presentation. And that worked out very well because the town official could tell their side of the story and how helpful the district had been with some projects that they were doing. So turned out to be a really good meeting. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend. I really wanted to, but all the feedback was very positive on that. So, and our new office building, we have a roof and walls on it, so, and windows. So that's good. We're making good progress, and hopefully it's going to be weather tight soon. Darren, anything to report?
I don't think so. I think I'm all set.
Okay, Megan?
Nothing to report, but I'd just like to say, as a relatively new member, I feel like every meeting we have there, I'm learning something new, whether it's that tree presentation we just had or the guidelines we just learned about for the districts. It's just, I appreciate the way that things are organized well and that there's always new content to be taking in.
Very good. Maureen?
Mentioned, my Oaxaca Creek Watershed Committee is actually starting the fall tree checks that we go back and maintain all the plantings we've done along Oaxaca Creek. So I know there's a group going out in about a half an hour to one of the parks to check the tubes of things we planted last fall and last spring. So I appreciate the guide very much. And I think we'll find many uses for it.
Awesome.
All right, Bethany, I'll turn it over to you for the rest of the reports.
All right, well, do we want to follow the same protocol that we did for attendance? Maybe we can go around the room there in Albany. We'll do Syracuse and then I'll jump to the folks who are joining remotely.
Sounds good. You're up.
Ryan, you could start.
All right, thank you so much. I'll just briefly report on an event that the Division of Land and Water Resources were able to assist the Commissioner's Office on last Friday. And that was that Commissioner wanted very much to bring commissioners of DEC, NYSERDA, folks from the Public Service Commission, Department of State, and others to a couple of farms in Cayuga County who are just doing tremendous work in the renewable energy space, both in renewable liquid fuels as well as renewable natural gas. So a special thanks to the Cayuga County Soil and Water Conservation District for helping to garner participation from those farms and organize the event, as well as the farms of Dumont, Grain Farm and Sunnyside Farms for their gracious hospitality in opening up their farms for this tour. It really went great. A lot of staff from the Division and Soil and Water Committee were there as well to listen and hear and support these farms in their work. And the president and CEO of NYSERDA and her staff, it really was a great day to showcase what is possible on those farms. Of course, big emphasis of the tour and the work was not just in the renewable fuels and renewable natural gas themselves, but how those farms operate, how they manage, with soil health in mind, with environmental management, including buffers and a whole host of other conservation measures that are taken by these farms in support by the Cayuga County Soil and Water District. The dean of Cornell Cals was there with staff from ProDairy as well to offer up information about the extent to which renewable natural gas, can help support the state's energy goals. And really was just a great day. And a lot of work went into that tour, and a lot of good discussions are coming out of it. So special thanks to the Cayuga Soil and Water District and the farms out there and all those who were involved. I should say,
I don't know.
I'm sorry.
I know.
Go ahead.
Yeah, makes me a little nervous.
Oh,
Maybe it'll be done. Maybe it won't be done.
He's not muted. But I should also mention too that the timing for this is good because the draft state energy plan has been out for public comment. Public comments were due in the beginning of October, and there's quite a bit of emphasis on renewable fuels, alternative fuels, and agriculturally derived feedstocks for those fuels. That's it.
Regionally, like Bethany said, we're trying to go through the process of transitioning all the districts and contracts and that sort of stuff. So that's pretty much what I've been focused on the last month or so, especially the last couple of weeks since Travis has come on. We've met here in Albany a couple times to start the paperwork transfer, obviously get him onboarded with Brian, and then all the AEAs met here last Thursday and Friday to kind of, Travis could meet the other guys in his new role, and same thing, just kind of go over how we process annual plans of works and contracts and that sort of stuff. So that's taken up a decent amount of time, and then just getting to new districts. I've attended about half of my new districts board meetings so far. Did district law training in Washington and went out and saw some projects yesterday. I'm going to Albany County and doing a training this afternoon when I leave here. So just trying to get up to speed on where all the projects are and where the districts are, and then hopefully get to a few of my old region meetings with Travis in the next couple of weeks. It's also the goal to introduce him to a few districts. So definitely busy.
Jennifer?
Submit your round 9 applications. Thanks. Nothing to report.
Also,
Nothing to report other than that.
really looking forward to being on KFO ENP. So, and hopefully working with some districts more closely in a role that or in that specific way that I haven't so far. So should be an easy transition, but I'll work with Jason, so it'll be pretty smooth.
You guys want to mention the trip last week?
Oh yeah, well, we did get a chance, Jennifer and I, with Scott, to farm out in Montgomery County, to check out a very cool installation of this manure aeration system, of this bubbler technology that is, I mean, it's exciting to see because it's a lower cost than similar effort or projects that are designed to reduce the methane emissions from manure storages. So this bubbler was, I mean, that county, that district is already has a few of them, and I know some other districts do too. But seeing that, I mean, I look forward to getting some more this on more farms. I mean, it is.
Do you know which farm it was?
It was yeah, M&T. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean,
it's a KFO ENP.
It is, yeah, it's a KFO ENP project. So we're funding that.
Yeah. All right, Bethany, I think we're back to you.
All right, thank you. Quick report from me. Following our September State Committee meeting, myself and a number of our staff were able to participate in the National Association of Conservation Districts Northeast meeting that was coupled with the NYACD annual meeting that took place in Syracuse. I thought it was a really great event. A number of our staff led various different training sessions, if you will, for folks that attended that meeting. We coordinated sessions all about, one was all about the Environmental Protection Fund and the various cost share programs and reimbursement programs that we administer through the state committee. We had a district-led watershed coalitions session, which highlighted a number of the different coalitions that have been established across the state, and I think really hit home about the importance of our partnership and district's partnership with DEC. We had an agricultural environmental management session led by Chaz and Greg. And in talking with some folks who attended the event, I think all good things out of those sessions. Folks were really impressed with the AEM program and just the success of it over the years. And I think there was a lot of good feedback from the coalition class as well. Showing how well, folks here in New York State work together in partnership. So we all were involved in that. I was also able to attend the Ag Non-Point Source Round 30 press event, which took place at the end of September on the Van Patten Farm in Cortland County. It was a really, really beautiful day to be out there on that farm. Commissioner Ball, as well as Commissioner Lefton from DEC, were in attendance to formally announce the awards of the Ag Non-Point Source program. Cortland County Soil and Water led a great presentation and took us on a quick tour of the farm. So thanks to everybody for participating in that event. It was really neat to be part of. I was also able to participate in the tour that Brian spoke about, and it was an awesome tour. I learned a lot and was confused a lot. It's an area I think that probably deserves more time and discussion. But there are farms just out there doing some pretty innovative things, and it's very impressive to see. The last thing that I want to mention is that New York, or the New York State Committee, was invited to take part in a let me get the actual name of it here. In a District Official Training Task Force. So this task force is being headed up by the National Association of State Conservation Agencies, or NASCA. And they invited a number of different representatives from all across the country, from various state committees, agencies, to participate in this task force. And the overall goal of this group is to review and assess the collection of district official training modules and resources that are available through NASCA. I think roughly 15 years ago, they embarked on this endeavor, and now it's time to kind of do it again. So we had an initial meeting last week to kind of meet each other on the task force and hear from the various different states that are on that group, what kind of trainings they have available, how they conduct those trainings with their districts, and if those particular trainings for the officials are tied to any like performance measures or funding, that sort of thing. So the next step in this effort is to the representatives, we're going to review all of the resources that are available currently online and see if there's any gaps. I thought this was a really neat task force to be part of, and I was very interested in participating because here specifically in New York, we've kind of had as part of our strategic plan to look at our training modules that we have available to districts and update those at some point over the next couple of years. So it's all a great, tie-in. So I'm looking forward to being part of that, and if possible, working with our regional coordinator staff on what they see as needs or gaps, and go from there. So I'll keep everybody posted.
Bethany, did you just say whether or not that task force, was that the part of the regional at NASCA, or is that nationwide?
That's nationwide. So we had representatives from New Jersey, Oregon, Kansas, Iowa, New York, New Mexico, Louisiana, and North Carolina on the call.
Wonderful.
So it's very cool. I had only really met the New Jersey representative before, so it's nice to I guess see some other people. Right.
Yeah, well, thanks. Mostly recent for Region 4, kind of taking stock of the new districts that we're taking on and some of the switching, kind of get an idea of where these districts are with needs, their grant timelines, maybe some site visits and reviews in the field this fall, any closeouts that are pending. Also paying particular attention to a lot of the fall due dates for these districts, along with the other ones that I'm working with. RP requests coming in, district annual plan of work for November 1st. Seeing some AEM 5-year strategies coming in, trying to give them a glance and a review, particularly if they haven't been to the boards yet, and trying to get some feedback when we see that it's relevant. We're also coming to the close of AEM round 18, so trying to take a look at tier 4 projects in the field as I can. Trying to close those up with Chaz and kind of get them off the books, so it's less work to do over the winter for close out their AIM round 18 before they move into round 19. Otherwise, sitting in on the State Envirothon Committee, got some meetings coming up for that, and attending the CDA's administrative conference next week in Casanova. That's about it for me. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'd say the report for Region 3 is pretty much a carbon copy of what Ryan just discussed, meeting with managers new to Region 3, spending some time doing handoff of files, digital and hard copy, to the other AEAs where I'm handing off districts to them. Review of deadlines, as Ryan mentioned, there's a lot of paperwork coming through the email these days, so you have all your annual plan of works to review, RP projects to review, and AIM 5-year strategies also to review. Reassessing all the open contracts for Region 3, I think we're in pretty good shape. We've only got a few that are past due, and I've been reaching out to managers to get the story and try to get them current. It also discussing or talking to managers, I guess, in Region 3, having some discussions about the impacts of the federal shutdown, what that means for projects that are cost shared through NRCS, trying to be paid out, either the former reimbursed or maybe even assignment of payment to a vendor, what it means for projects that have NRCS engineering, what it means for projects that are over budget and going to require the last 10% plus contingency from us. Trying to game out different scenarios, options under which they can pay in the absence of NRCS and their paperwork, to try to give them some guidance or at least an opportunity for discussion. And I would encourage any districts on the line that have that kind of contract. I think we're aware of about 26 of them as of February that have been identified as the landowner shares coming from Equip, but I'm sure there's a lot more, or at least a few more out there. And, you know, it's going to be a waiting game. I think is one conclusion you can draw. Even after the government opens up, there's going to be some time that NRCS needs to regroup, I guess, perhaps reorganize under their reduced workforce, and then do what they need to do to get these payments into people's bank accounts such that the paperwork can be generated and districts can calculate their own payments. So talking to districts about who's waiting, what it means for their ongoing projects and maybe projects that they were planning. So those kind of discussions happening as well. But other than that, it's pretty much been business as usual. Thanks.
Thanks, Scott. Dan?
Yep. First of all, just wanted to say good job to the folks that organized Conservation Skills workshop. I was able to actually host one of the classes in my building. They had pretty good turnout for that. Looked like it was good information. If I didn't have so much to do in the office, they were having more fun than I was that day. This is the time of year where cooperative extension associations have their annual meetings. I know some of those started last week, but they'll be going on throughout about the first week in December. So keep an eye out for those. And then for folks in the Mohawk Valley, Central New York, Southwest New York, Pro Dairy is doing they're called Dairy Systems and Technology Showcase in each of those regions and farm tours that'll be going on over the next couple weeks, where there'll be a couple farms each day. You do your own transportation, but they'll have both the farmer and some folks from Pro Dairy and our regional extension teams there to talk about what the farm's been doing.
Bounce back to PJ.
All right, thank you. Same for Region 2 that the other AEAs have said. There's a lot going on with annual plan of work reviews, things like that, and Part B reviews. So normal day-to-day business operations like that, a lot of closeouts, doing some training here and there with some of my districts, some of the newer technicians on closeouts and what we need to see in procurement and things like that. But I also wanted to take a moment just to say thank you to Onondaga, Mark Berger. He helped me, put me in touch with Jed Walsh, who was a stormwater management officer for the city of Syracuse. And we did a wonderful green infrastructure walking tour for the conservation skills workshop. There was a lot of new technicians in attendance, and we got to walk around the city and look at all the green infrastructure that they had. And I wanted to say thank you to Jed Walsh as well. He did a fantastic job of not only explaining the green infrastructure, but also the maintenance, the collaborative efforts that he put in, the work that they do with the Soil and Water District. So big thank you to Jed and to Mark for making that such a wonderful class. So happy to be a part of that. Other than that, just more closeouts coming up, and the Eastern Finger Lakes Coalition continues to meet. As you've heard me say before, we have our capacity contract we're currently working through right now. That's in place and ongoing, and we're looking forward to our implementation contract, which is going to be coming very shortly, and we have a meeting scheduled for later this week, so I'm excited to continue that effort. and go forward with a lot of implementation that's coming down the pike. So other than that, I think that's all I have for Region 2.
All right, thanks, PJ. So we'll bounce back to the rest of our advisory members who are joining remotely. Do we still have anyone from Cornell Cals on the line? How
I'm
about
still here, but I don't really have anything to add to Dan's report.
Thank you, Kitty. Appreciate it. Let's see. How about CDEA? Caitlin.
Thank you, Bethany. Great to be here. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes.
The CDEA board representatives have attended or facilitated a number of meetings that ensure CDEA's support and contribution to all of our employees and the four-way partnership and beyond. These meetings included a CDEA special meeting, a CDEA SPAC or State Programs Advisory Committee meeting, as well as the State Committee's SPAC meeting. We attended the NACD Northeast NYACD annual meeting and conference, as well as an invasive species advisory committee meeting and a technical advisory meeting hosted by the SWCC. To echo what Bethany reported out on the National Association of Conservation District Northeast Regional and the New York Association of Conservation Districts annual meeting and conference, what an incredible 4 days, from the tour on the Erie Canal to the trainings to networking. It was phenomenal. A huge congratulations to everyone involved. I had the pleasure of presenting Market Your District to a full house on September 23rd. I also provided an annual report during the NYACD's business meeting on September 23rd. And it was awesome to sit with Bethany on a panel discussion called Creating Beneficial Engagements with Departments of Agriculture. We had some preset questions that led to excellent discussion with the audience, and it was really well received. And finally, CDEA board members tabled during the event as well. I emailed and mailed the New York State Civil Service Commissioner Timothy Hoags and shared concerns of our employees. And incredible, I received an email follow-up from Human Resources Specialist Jana Schillinglaw. She recommended that districts should update their job descriptions with their respective civil service agencies to ensure that these descriptions are current. Having current descriptions will ensure that examiners develop relevant examinations, aka updating the questions to make them relevant. We don't want to plant crowned vetch anymore. We know that that is invasive species. Let's get that off the exam and start to update these exams with relevant questions. In the absence of an eligible list of candidates or exams, Jana recommended the New York Hiring for Emergency Limited Placement statewide program, or the HELPS program. I do know that conservation districts have received varied results from the HELPS program. Some counties are supporting the district's eligibility, and some will not allow conservation districts into this program. So I will fully share this correspondence during our November CDEA board meeting. And again, I was thrilled after months to receive a follow-up message to our concerns. As many have already reported, the Conservation Skills Workshop was held October 6th through 9th. This is a field-based training session that is sponsored by the Soil and Water Conservation Committee, the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service, as well as the Conservation District Employees Association. An incredible 14 classes were offered that ranged from invasive species and grazing principles and guidelines to green infrastructure for stormwater that we heard about from PJ, as well as basic surveying. So something for everyone, whether you were a new technician or a senior technician with decades of experience. I want to send out a tremendous thank you to the entire Conservation Skills Committee and all of our instructors and partners for hosting another successful event. The CDEA Administrative Conference and Water Quality Symposium committees are working hard to deliver excellent and beneficial training sessions for district employees and our partners. And some upcoming events that you can mark your calendars for. Our administrative conference is right around the corner, October 28th through 29th in Cazenovia. Our next CDEA meeting will be November 17th through 18th in Delphi Falls. And as Delphi Falls, Cazenovia, we will have both in-person and virtual options to attend. And we've locked in the dates for the 2025 Water Quality Symposium, March 10th through 13th, and we'll be returning to the Rochester Hyatt. Thank you, Bethany.
Thank you, Caitlin. And as always, thank you for your written report. We'll make sure that gets in the minutes. Let's see, moving on. Anyone from DEC still with us? Okay, how about Department of Health?
Nothing here. Thank you.
Nope, I don't have anything to report. Thank you, Bethany.
Thank you both. All right, that is, I believe, all of our advisory members. So I'm going to move to our state committee staff who are joining remotely. Greg, you're up.
Bethany, thanks. A few quick things. The other planning department crew will talk about some of our ag classes at Conservation Skills, but I just wanted to thank Kristen Blue from Franklin County and Joe Chervalotti from Oswego County for putting on a really good forestry track and forestry class up in Oswego County on districts developing their own forestry programs or expanding. And it also involved two really excellent forest owners and managers that we toured in the afternoon to sort of see it in practice, both in terms of recent and long time ago tree plantings, as well as, you know, more conventional silviculture work in the woods within existing forest lands. So that was really great. The next one's also training oriented, and when I'm done, I'll put the link in, but the 2025 Northeast Region Certified Crop Advisor training for both an advanced track for existing CCAs, as well as basic training. That's a preparation to take the exam for those districts and partners who are pursuing Certified Crop Advisor accreditation, has been scheduled, and the registration was released this morning. So I'll put that link in the chat for early mid-December sessions. And then the last bit is a follow-up from a discussion that Matt Brower was point on at the September State Committee meeting, and that's about the DEC freshwater wetlands jurisdictional determination rule upgrades and process. As a part of the September meeting minutes, we included an accumulation of questions from a wide range of partners from districts, NRCS, other divisions within DEC, the state committee, AIM certified planners, even some farmers. We collected up some questions that were pertinent, sent it to DEC, Division of Fish and Wildlife, wetland staff for their review and clarification to sort of continue to build their Q&A that they have associated with the new jurisdictional determination process for wetlands. And since the September meeting, last Friday on October 17th, we received an initial draft. It's, you know, clearly a draft, and it's a collective work in progress DC response to those questions. And then that followed up with a discussion with an ad hoc group of these partners with DEC later that afternoon. And appreciate Caitlin Stewart and Jessica Armstrong with their CDA hats on for supporting the participation by Amanda Barber from Cortland District, John Persh from Fulton, and Joe Sherberlotti from Oswego for their different and fairly deep experience so far with wetlands, and then these new rules as district representatives, along with Cornell Cooperative Extension and NRCS if when they resume work, as well as our staff and others from DEC. So we continue to work on those questions with DEC, and they are working now to schedule a second meeting with that ad hoc group of partners to refine that Q&A, so that, you know, the end goal is really to help us all, you know, to continue our conservation work in line with the regs and with some consistency across the state and more efficiency. Bethany and Matt, I know you're particularly interested in that. That's my update on that topic, but if there are other thoughts or questions, please feel free.
Yeah, I just wondered, Greg, so there will be some follow-up discussions, because there was a few things that from our district that were not ag related, so that they weren't on that list of questions. And I had to leave the phone conversation early, so I don't know if we got to those or whether they'll be in a future meeting or.
Yeah, definitely in a future meeting. If you want to formalize those, I mean, I think, you know, as a result of these discussions, probably some more questions will emerge. That happened on Friday afternoon. So maybe draft those up, Matt, and let's include them.
Yeah, okay, I'll get with John and because there even was something that happened more recently in our county that, you know, that was kind of it raises some questions. So yeah, I'll get with John. We'll draft something up that we can get to you and, you know, include in future discussions.
That'd be great. And, you know, I think FAQs or Q&As are kind of living documents too. So it's maybe establishing this communication. So when good questions do come up that have statewide relevance, we can address them with that staff at DEC and get clarification where clarification is possible. Some of it's site specific and, you know, does go back to the local DEC and project partners. With some more clarifications in this area, you know, we're also, the next step is then, well, letting people know about that. So DEC is going to help us with a training on this at the Northeast Region CCA session in December. And then we're hoping to have them included as well as I think some others at DEC in a non-ag track on DEC regs and permits and things like that at the Water Quality Symposium in March. So I'll put the link to the CCA training in there, and thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Greg. And I'll just add, I have some notes, extra notes as well from our September meeting on the wetland stuff that I failed to type up and send to you. So I'll get those to you as well.
Perfect. Awesome.
For additions to that guidance. Very good. All right. Next on my list, Travis, our newest member. Do you have any updates for the group today?
Pretty much the same as all the other regional AEAs, with the exception of just kind of working to get my feet underneath me with the new position. But annual plans of work, Part B is reviewing those, reaching out to the districts, many of whom I know from previous district work, but just, you know, introducing myself, saying hi in my new role, working on attending some board meetings in the upcoming months, and have a couple pending closeouts that need to work through with some districts. But yeah, pretty much similar to what the other AEAs have been mentioning.
Thank you, Travis. Chaz, any updates today?
Hey guys, Chaz here. So
round 18 for AEM is coming to a close at the end of this year. So districts are working really hard at getting projects done and finishing up some tier work and some outreach. So good luck to them. Round 19 is going really good. That's going to start January 1st of 2026. Most of the contracts are already executed, which is a first for, or almost a first for all of us. And we'll be collecting some claims for payments here soon to process at the beginning of the new year. Districts are figuring out what projects they're going to implement for that funding and planning on finishing up their strategies that are due at the end of this year, December 31st, 2025. And so I have a few of those coming in and beginning to review those. As everybody has said, I'm going to leave con skills for Brendan and Gideon to summarize. And we did present also at the NYACD meeting the AEM program, which was not a huge audience, but the people who were there were perfect for it. They were similar to Bethany's roles in other states, and they had a lot of questions about our AEM program and how it works and how it was established. And it was really well received. And we could have spoken to them for a couple more hours and it wouldn't have touched everything we wanted to hit. So it was really, really, really good and a great opportunity for us to highlight what we do here in New York State and tell them how to try and get that in their state. So I thought that was a really great opportunity for us and really, really enjoyed it. But otherwise, continuing to work on and push forward great training and working with the team here on lots of good things to come along and lots of good things that we did. So thank you.
Thank you, Chaz. Brendan.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I'll speak about the classes that we were a part of at Conservation Skills. A great event, a lot of great classes. The planning team ran the gauntlet with 4 classes for the week. And I just want to give a quick nod to the whole planning team. Myself, Ron, Greg, Chaz, and Gideon. I don't think any of those 4 classes would have gone on without all of us playing teamwork. As well as a number of other people, which I'll try to remember to mention. The first class we started off with for the week was a Tier 2 farmstead class, which Gideon and Chaz headed up. So I'll let him speak about how that took shape. On Tuesday, we had a basic AEM skills course that Ron headed up and I helped with. We got an opportunity to go out to Minturn Farms, which is a beef operation and an extremely well managed farm. We got a chance to walk around with the students and kind of take stock of everything, learn about the farm and all the nutrient sources that can be produced, as well as how we work those sources into a nutrient management plan. And in that vein, we did a live spreader calibration demonstration, as well as kind of on the fly, which was a little bit of a treat. Got a chance to go up the road to a larger operation with the folks from Pro Dairy, Kirsten Workman and Jason Oliver, and see some larger manure handling equipment and kind of see the contrast between a little bit of a smaller operation and a larger operation and kind of the differences in calibration techniques and nutrient management planning techniques that would go along with that, and do some equipment walk and talks, which was great. On Wednesday, we had the advanced manure handling course, where Greg headed that one up, and it was a tour of both a manure bubbling system that has been installed on Conquest cattle, their beef operation, and that was awesome to see. That was the first time I'd seen that operating in person. We got a chance to go in the barn, walk around, see the system running and doing its thing, and get the farmer's perspective of it being installed and him having it for a period of time and how that's working out for him. And he speaks very highly of it. So it was great to see kind of the behind the curtain of that. And then we traveled to Aurora Ridge Dairy, where we were able to see their pretty vast and comprehensive manure separation and cover and flare system, and spoke with both the operator and some of the people that had a hand in getting it built and keeping it running, about what they've seen over the time that that's operated, and the challenges and the victories and all of that. So that was great. And then Thursday, I rounded out the week with a class that I headed up on soil health and tillage equipment. I think I saw his name on here, Jason Cutterback. I want to thank. We went out to his farm. He's a very gracious host and allowed us to walk all over his fields and tear them up a little bit. He brought some equipment out for us to walk and talk around and sort of get an idea of some of these tillage implements and the different names and how they fit into our Russell 2 calculations and our planning techniques, as well as actually sink some of them in the ground and see them run, do some demonstrations, which was great. We had a lot of conversations about the standards that we use for soil health and how those all fit together. And Jason did a really good job of kind of giving us a real world on farm view of how those can come full circle and fit with a manager's goals and an economic climate and all that we have to consider when we're building these soil health plans. And Joseph A. M. Seeley from the New York Soil Health Program was able to bring out their soil health trailer and give us a demonstration that goes along with that. And I really want to thank him because he gave sort of a unique perspective on that, since a lot of us state employees and district employees alike have seen those demonstrations before. He was able to kind of pull the curtain back and show us some tips and tricks on how that can be done, at the district level, and put on presentations for soil health awareness and education. So that was awesome. And we rounded out the day just having a discussion on what we learned and some of the tools that we use. And Joe, I forgot, let me back up. Joe also gave us a demonstration on the cache soil test, taking that sample and sort of some of the benchmarking and soil health progress that they're seeing and are a part of across the state. So and I want to thank Joe, obviously, and Kirsten Workman and Jason Oliver from Pro Dairy. They were instrumental in those. And once again, I can't thank the team enough. I had a great time. It was a tiring end to the week, but I think we all would agree that it was well worth it. So that's my update. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brendan. Gideon, you have any additional updates or anything else you want to add?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Bethany. I'll just speak briefly on the class that Chaz and I were in charge of from the planning team. I think we had the nicest weather day of the year for Conskills on Monday. It was still warm and sunny. But we led a class that was focused on farmstead planning and completing the tier 2s of the AEM process. So we had about 20 students that were, we had a cross section of experience, but most of them, I would say, were relatively new or new to a livestock or dairy operation as far as the assessment goes. So we really focused on identifying resource concerns around the farmstead. We didn't really focus on solutions. It was more about calibrating the eye and the brain with the tier 2 sheets and how to assess, what we see on the farmstead landscape. really fun class. I think everybody enjoyed it. And, you know, from my first experience as a teacher, if you will, at the Con Skills Workshop and not a student, it was very enjoyable. Big shout out to Jason Cuddyback and Cayuga County Soil and Water for all their help with us, you know, to help facilitate these farms that graciously accept these classes to come out and use that living laboratory. There's really no better way to do it. So big thanks to Jason and Abby and the other folks with Cayuga County for helping pull that all together. And definitely a shout out to Chaz for making sure we all had snacks for every class and water and all those intangibles that some of us didn't have to think about because Chaz had it covered. So yeah, great experience. And now we're kind of shifting gears. As Greg mentioned, the CCA conference coming up. We're working on some class content for that we'll be presenting on, and also water quality symposium. So on to the next one. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you very much. I believe that concludes our staff reports. I just want to give opportunity for any Soil and Water Conservation District staff or board member that is joining us today to share out any reports that they may have. And any members of the public, anyone else who might be joining today, if you have anything you want to share out, please feel free. Well, hearing none, thank you all for all of those great reports and everybody, the work that you're doing out there. It's pretty incredible to hear everything that's been going on. So with that, Matt, I believe that concludes our comment report section of the agenda.
All righty. So we've got the next meeting scheduled for November 18th. Does that look good for everyone?
So I do just want to remind voting members that we will be holding an in-person ethics training in November 18th. Everyone, with the exception of Megan, because she's already taken it, is required to take that ethics training. You can either attend in November or take it on your own online. But just want to remind folks of that please try to be available in November for that portion of the meeting.
I'm glad you reminded us. I forgot. Okay, then with that, I think we can adjourn.
All right. Thank you all. I hope you have a
Thanks,
great
everyone.
rest of your week.
Thanks so much, everybody.